Somewhere under the warm shallows of the island, a shadow longer than a school bus is moving. It is not in a hurry, it does not need to be. For 20 million years, the ocean rearranged itself around this animal, and anything that met it in open water only got one chance. This is Ark Megalodon, the largest shark that ever lived, about 18 meters of muscle and teeth, with a bite that could crumple a small car like foil. I just dropped it into one of the nastiest oceans ever coded, the waters of Ark Survival Evolved. On prehistoric Earth, Megalodon basically had the place to itself. Rivals were rare, and the big ones still usually lost. In Ark, it has neighbors, a Mosasaurus the length of a bus, a Tusateuthus that latches on and hauls prey screaming into the dark, plus a few thousand stubborn players who would love nothing more than to turn that shark into a saddle and a trophy screenshot. So the question is simple, and the answer is not. Could a real Megalodon actually survive down there? I am Dr. Cryptid. I spend a lot of time asking whether impossible creatures can last in worlds that were never built for them. Today we find out if the ocean's greatest killer can hold its own on the island. This is Survival Decoded. I take a real animal, drop it into a world it never evolved for, and ask whether biology lets it last. Megalodon looks unbeatable on paper, 50 to 70 tons of mass. Bite force estimated somewhere between 100,000 and 180,000 newtons, the strongest bite ever calculated for any animal. Teeth, the size of your hand, serrated and thick enough to punch through bone. If raw power settled survival, this video would already be over and we would all go home impressed. It does not work that way. 4 things decide survival here, and power is only one slice of the pie. Same scorecard I use every time a creature lands on my table. Habitat adaptability. Can it live in these waters at all, or does half the map quietly kill it? Dietary compatibility. Is there enough of the right food for a body this size, not just anything that swims? Competition and predation. Can it hold ground against Ark's apexes and against players who never sleep? Reproductive success. Can it make more of itself, or is every adult a dead end wearing a crown? Each category out of 10, 40 points total. Stay until the end. After the final score, I will walk through 3 ways a real Megalodon might evolve to survive the island long term, and the last one turns the entire ocean into a nightmare for everything else. Into the water. First thing most people get wrong, Megalodon was not an all-ocean animal. Fossils put it in warm, shallow, coastal water. The kind of temperate seas where whales gathered and pups could grow up with a little cover from the worst of the open ocean. It was a warm water specialist that happened to be enormous. That matters more than the movie posters ever admit. Ark's ocean is not one habitat. It is a stack of them, stacked mean. Bright, warm shallows around the coast? Megalodon is home. That is the water it was built for, sunlit, open enough to turn, full of large prey silhouettes against the surface. Swim out, though, and the sea floor falls into cold, black, high-pressure trenches. That is where the trouble starts. Megalodon was a mesotherm, like a modern great white. It could keep parts of its body warmer than the water around it, which helps for short dives and bursts of speed. Useful, but not full warm-blooded. Leave it in the deep cold biomes too long and the muscles lag, the metabolism drags, and the hunting edge goes dull. You do not need a dramatic death scene. You only need the cold to steal a half-second of reaction time. Then there is room. An 18-meter animal needs space to turn, accelerate, and fire the ambush that sharks depend on. Open shallows give it that runway. Cluttered kelp forests, tight caves, wreck-strewn floors, and coral canyons do not. A Megalodon jammed into a coral canyon is not an apex. It is a very large, very stuck fish, and stuck fish get farmed. And the deep is not only cold, it is crushing. The island's pressure biomes sit under hundreds of meters of black water. A shark's cartilage skeleton handles pressure better than bone, sure, but the rest of this animal was tuned for sunlit coastal seas, not the lightless bottom. Megalodon hunted by vision and by sensing faint movement in the water column. In Ark's trenches it would be half-blind, in cold that saps strength, on terrain it cannot read. Speed, ambush, that single devastating strike, all of it needs a target you can see in open water to run at. The deep strips those tools and hands nothing back. I keep landing on the same problem when I map this creature onto this world. Megalodon does not fail on the island because it is fragile. It fails because 2/3 of the map is water. Its body was never built to enter, and the third it owns is exactly where every rival and every player already comes looking for a fight. Perfect coastline, terrible floor plan. So it owns 1/3 of this ocean and struggles in the rest. Powerful, boxed in. Habitat adaptability, 6 out of 10. The warm coasts are perfect. Everything below them is borrowed time. Here, size stops being a superpower and starts looking like a bill that comes due every day. A body this large is expensive to run. Estimates for daily intake run enormous, on the order of 1,000 kilograms of flesh when it is feeding hard, and it did not get that by nibbling reef scraps. It evolved to hunt whales, drive up from below, shatter a rib cage, or tear off a fin in one hit, then bank the energy. Megalodon was not a patient fisherman. It specialized in very large, very fatty prey, and that specialization worked for millions of years because the oceans kept producing whales. So the island question is not, is there food? Of course there is food. The question is there the right food often enough without getting killed for it? Ark is a strange menu. On the plus side, the ocean is stocked with giants. Lead-sick, massive filter feeder, slow, docile, packed with the bulk a Megalodon would love. Basilosaurus, ancient whale-shaped creature that, to our shark, looks like dinner from the Pliocene wearing a slightly wrong skin. Real high-value prey. Point in Megalodon's favor. Catch. A lot of the other large animals down here are not on the menu. They are the competition. Mosasaurus is a rival apex, not a snack you casually take a bite of. Tusoteuthis eats things Megalodon's size for breakfast. Strip those out, and reliable large prey thins fast. Ordinary reef fish cannot keep a 50-ton engine running. Feeding Megalodon on minnows is like trying to run a diesel truck on perfume. You can pour forever. You still end up on the side of the road. Run the numbers on that appetite, because this is the quiet killer of the whole scorecard. A modern great white, at a fraction of the size, can go weeks between major meals, then gorge and bank energy in an oil-rich liver. Megalodon almost certainly ran the same system, scaled up to monstrous proportions. It did not need to eat constantly, but when it did, it needed a colossal payoff, the caloric hit of an entire whale, not a mouthful of reef fish. On ancient Earth, whales were abundant and predictable. That worked. On the island, giant prey is scattered, contested, and finite. A Leadsichthys, or Basilosaurus, is a jackpot, but there are only so many, and our shark is not the only thing hunting the big targets. Once the easy jackpots dry up, the math turns brutal. Chase small prey and the energy burned. Hunting a single fish barely beats what that fish returns. A specialist in giants, dropped into a world slowly running out of giants, does not pivot gracefully into omnivore mode. It starves in the middle of an ocean that looks full from a distance. Megalodon can eat well on the island until the easy giants run low. Then it is a starving apex surrounded by things that bite back. Dietary Compatibility 5 out of 10. The buffet is real. It is smaller and meaner than it looks. Now the fight people actually showed up for. Straight one-on-one, open water, clean setup. I would bet the shark almost every time. Megalodon's body is a delivery system for one clean strike. Stealth, speed, rise from the dark under the target, bite nothing in this ocean, can shrug off without consequence. Against Mosasaurus, that first hit is devastating. Land the ambush clean, and the fight ends before the mosasaur knows it started. That is the highlight reel version, and the highlight reel is not wrong, it is just incomplete. Ark does not do fair fights, and Mosasaurus is not soft. Roughly the same length, more maneuverable in a prolonged scrap, and it breathes air. In a long grind, something that can surface and reset has a stamina edge over something that cannot. Miss the ambush and the fight becomes attrition. Attrition is exactly where a bulky warm water specialist starts to lose ground, meter by meter, until the water goes red for the wrong animal. Then Tusoteuthis. This matchup actually worries me more than the mosasaur does. A squid the size of a submarine whose plan is grab, wrap, and drag the victim into crushing dark where it cannot escape or breathe. Megalodon is an open water striker. It has no good answer for something that kills its speed and holds it still. Caught in those arms, it stops being an apex. It becomes dinner with a very expensive dental plan. One more threat people always underrate, because it is neither big nor flashy. The Cnidaria, Ark's giant jellyfish, it does not need to outfight Megalodon, it only needs to touch it and dump a shock that stuns and scrambles timing. For most creatures, that is a nuisance, a bad day, a funny death clip. For an ambush predator whose whole plan hangs on precise high-speed timing, one mistimed jolt is the difference between landing the kill and hanging there dazed in open water while something worse arrives. No armor, no ranged answer, no clean disengage. An intelligent enemy will exploit that every time, and players are nothing if not intelligent about glitches in a predator's schedule. And I have not even gotten to the players themselves. Tamed mosasaurs with riders, coordinated hunts, turrets on rafts, the relentless pressure of an opponent that learns your patterns and comes back tomorrow with better gear. Megalodon rules the reef until something smarter, or something with more arms, decides to test it. Competition and predation, 7 out of 10. A monster in a duel, soft the moment the duel turns into a brawl. This is the category that decides everything, because survival is never about one animal looking cool on camera. It is about the next generation still being there when the camera turns off. Megalodon gave birth to live young. Fossils point to nurseries, warm, shallow coastal zones where pups, already around 2 meters at birth, could grow away from the biggest threats. Solid system on ancient Earth when the shallows were relatively safe and adults could patrol the edges. 2-meter pups are not helpless minnows. In a quieter ocean, they are a real investment paying off. The shallows of the island are not quiet. They are one of the most dangerous strips of water in the game. Sarcosuchus, smaller predators, players farming the coastline for hide and chitin, constant casual traffic from boats and tames. A 2-meter megalodon pup looks formidable to us standing on a beach. In Ark's shallows, it is prey with a big mouth. A species whose nursery is a killing field has a broken future, no matter how terrifying the adults look on the loading screen. Shark biology makes this worse than the first glance suggests. Large sharks grow slowly, mature late, and produce very few young compared with a bony fish that scatters thousands of eggs and hopes for the best. A megalodon female might pour years into a small litter of large, well-developed pups. That strategy needs a stable world, where a few high-quality offspring reliably reach adulthood. Unstable world, different story. If the environment kills your young faster than you can replace them, low fecundity stops being caution and becomes a trap. A fish that spawns 10,000 eggs can take horrific losses and keep the population limping forward. A shark that produces a handful of pups every few years cannot lose even one nursery without the whole population feeling it for a generation. On the island, where the shallows are a meat grinder, that math never balances. You can have the most powerful adult in the ocean. If its young are wiped before they mature, the population never replenishes. The apex dies of age or dies in a fight, and nothing replaces it. That is not a stable species. It is a countdown with teeth. Reproductive success, 3 out of 10. The adults are titans, the children are lunch, added up. Habitat 6, diet 5. Competition 7, reproduction 3, total 21 out of 40. That number has a specific story, and it is not shark too weak. Megalodon does not lose because it is soft. It loses because this world grinds it from every direction at once. It wins the fights it chooses. It cannot choose all of them, and it cannot protect the one thing that matters, its young. Apex on Tuesday. Ghost story by next season. My verdict, a real megalodon would hit the island as an instant apex, rule the warm coasts, and scare anything with a spine into hugging the reef. Then the cracks show. Easy prey thins. Deep water stays closed. A squid or a rider eventually catches it off guard. Pups vanish in the shallows one by one until the beaches go quiet of those big silhouettes. Megalodon wins fights and loses the war. Magnificent, dominant, and doomed in slow motion. But this is survival decoded, and I promise the interesting part. Imagine Megalodon did not just visit the island for a highlight reel. It stayed 100 generations, and evolution got to work under pressure that never lets up. I see 3 roads, none of them gentle. First, the efficiency road. Under thin food and closed habitats, winners are the smaller, cheaper megalodon. Over time, the species shrinks, maybe to 8 or 10 meters, trades whale hunting specialization for a broader diet, and stops needing 1,000 kilograms of prey a day just to feel alive. Gives up the crown of biggest, earns the crown of still here. Leaner apex, lasting one, less movie poster, more survivor. Second, the nursery road. Evolution hits the reproductive problem head-on. Surviving females stop using the deadly shallows and hide young where Ark cannot easily reach. Deep caves, sheltered trenches, guarded pockets of reef that adults can actually defend. Pups grow up armored and fast, or at least faster than the things trying to eat them. Because the species finally protects its future, it gets to keep its size. The monster stays a monster because its children live long enough to become one. Third road is the one I do not enjoy writing down. The thermal road. Somewhere in those 100 generations, a lineage crosses from mesotherm to true warm-blooded predator. Cold, deep trenches stop being a wall and become hunting ground. An animal this size, this powerful, with no biome left that can shut it out, does not find a polite place in the food web. It becomes the food web. Every ocean on the island, top to bottom, warm and cold, belongs to one appetite, not an apex predator, an extinction with fins. So there it is. Megalodon, greatest shark that ever lived, scores 21 out of 40 on the island. Unstoppable hunter undone by a picky diet, a closed map, and a nursery full of teeth. Strongest is not the same as survivor, never was. If you liked watching a legend get dropped into the deep end and scored without mercy, subscribe to Cryptid Codex. Next time we throw another impossible creature into a world that wants it dead and ask whether biology can save it. Until then, stay curious. I will see you in the next video.